Hello, welcome to an introduction to Love Notes. My name is Sarah Harlan. I am an outreach specialist in the community engagement department at Arkansas Children's. Our department works largely with schools and other community partners across the state to provide a wide range of prevention education. After this session, you will have an increased awareness of Arkansas Children's mission, an increased knowledge of the Love Notes program. You'll understand Love Notes implementation options, and you'll understand how to become a Love Notes partner if you're interested. So let's start with that mission. At Arkansas Children's, we champion children by making them better today and healthier tomorrow. Better today includes things like our inpatient services, clinical services. If we have a sick child, we're going to make them better today. But healthier tomorrow focuses more on prevention, and that's sort of where my department comes into the mission of Arkansas Children's. One way we accomplish this healthier tomorrow part of the mission is by implementing evidence-based health education programs in communities across the state. And Love Notes happens to be one of those programs. So what is this Love Notes? Love Notes is an innovative, comprehensive, and evidence-based healthy relationship curriculum. It has an evidence of positive effect on recent sexual activity, frequency of sexual activity, contraceptive use and or consistency, sexual initiation and abstinence, and pregnancy or birth. So basically, what all that means is that the United States Department of Health and Human Services did a 5-year evaluation on Love Notes, and it showed evidence of positive effects, so meaning recent sexual activity decreased with Love Notes. Frequency of sexual activity decreased with Love Notes. Contraceptive use and consistency increased. Sexual initiation was delayed. Abstinence was maintained after completion of the program, and then pregnancy or birth rates declined. Researchers found during this study that teaching Love Notes to teens resulted in a 46% reduction in the teen pregnancy rates compared to the control group. So that's pretty good. For our purposes, the program is geared towards 9th through 12th grade students. There are 14 total lessons. 13 of those are required and 1 is optional. Let's take a look at those 14 lessons. The lessons really build on one another, and it really starts with getting to know yourself. So with lesson 1, Relationships Today, students complete a drawing prompt that says, relationships today are like, and we'll look at some examples of what kind of responses we received on that. But lesson 1 gets students thinking about relationships today and introduces them to sort of the main purpose of going through the Love Notes course. Lesson 2, Knowing Yourself, includes a personality test. And then lesson 3, My Expectations, My Future, looks at some planning time so that they can make a plan for their future. So things that they discuss in Love Notes are meant for romantic relationships, but these are also skills that they can use across all of their relationships, with their teachers, a future coworker, a future boss. Once they get through lessons 1, 2, and 3, they've examined their baggage and their expectations and have a better understanding of how that shapes them. We move into the lessons that really focus on relationships. So lesson 4, Attraction and Starting Relationships, takes students through a brainstorm where they list the ingredients that they see in a perfect relationship. And then they use those ingredients to build a relationship around them and on them, rather than building a relationship on a shaky foundation, like starting a relationship with sex. Lesson 5 examines the 7 principles of smart relationships. Lesson 6 is it a healthy relationship? Teaches students how to determine if a relationship is healthy and how to break up if it isn't. Lesson 7 teaches students the warning signs of dating violence and dangerous love. It also explores issues around consent and sexual assault. Lesson 8 is Decide, Don't Slide. Decide, Don't Slide is a concept discussed where students learn how to make a plan for their relationships, and they move from a sliding sort of mindset, oh, I'm just going to let things happen, just whatever happens, happens, and move them more into a decision-making mindset. After lesson 8, we move into some communication skills with lessons 9 and 10. So what's communication got to do with it? And then communication challenges and more skills. During those lessons, we talk about why communication can be difficult, how to utilize those communication skills like taking a time out, the speaker listener technique, effective complaining. So we talk about the WWA formula there. So that's where you raise a complaint by saying what happened, when or where it happened, and how it affected you. Then our last lessons move into what we might traditionally call sex ed. In lesson 11, let's talk about sex. We look at intimacy. We look at the emotional risk and benefits of sex. We redefine safe sex. So for the purposes of Love Notes, safe sex is not just pregnancy and STI prevention. It's protecting your heart, your body, and your mind. In lesson 11, they also draw intimacy lines and learn to pace relationships. Lesson 12, Let's Plan for Choices, focuses on pregnancy and STI prevention, including contraceptives. It does an STI and HIV teach-in. There are some assertiveness skills taught for exiting risky situations, and then they create a personal plan for themselves, either to be abstinent or to pace their relationships. Lesson 13 examines unplanned pregnancy through the eyes of a child. It reinforces the sliding versus deciding concepts of lesson 8, especially in the regards of living together before marriage. It looks at the importance of father involvement and has a brief visual of early childhood development. The supplemental appendix lesson, technology and social media, is optional, but I highly encourage partners to teach it. The topics discussed are so relevant to today's students. So it talks about technology use and social media and how those things link to loneliness and anxiety and depression. It talks about sexting and cyberbullying and porn addiction. And, those are just such hard topics, but they're so crucial to discuss with students today. When I teach these lessons, I said that they build on one another. So we don't necessarily recommend teaching them out of order, except lesson 13 and the supplemental appendix lesson. I usually swap these and do lesson 13 as the very last lesson because it does such a good job of pulling everything together and tying everything up and putting a nice bow on the package that is Love Notes. I really do recommend teaching it last. As far as implementation goes, there are 3 ways that you can implement Love Notes in your classroom or with your program. One of those is an in-person option. We also have a virtual option or a hybrid option. And regardless of implementation method, an introduction to Love Notes is completed by an Arkansas Children's Health educator. So that would be me or my coworker, Charles Maxwell, who some of you may know from his Cooking Matters program. If you're teaching the in-person option, one of us is going to come teach lesson 1 for you. If you're doing a virtual option, we're going to do a brief introduction to Love Notes, but then spend some more in-depth time looking at how to use Turning Point, which is the program where we've built our online virtual lessons. Also, regardless of implementation method, you're going to set your own pace. So you're going to build lessons into your regular curriculum over the course of the class. That may be, since you guys are facts teachers, that may be dynamics of human relationships. That's where I'm seeing, the most of you being interested in this. Could be your regular facts class. We also have some partners that teach this in their health classes. So just as an FYI. But how you build that into your regular curriculum is going to look different, based on you and how you decide that you want to implement it. You could do 1 lesson per week. You could do a couple lessons per week. You could block off time to do all 13 or 14 lessons back to back if that's what you wanted to do. That typically takes about 3 to 4 weeks. The lessons can be taught in a 45, 50-minute class period. It's kind of pushing it a little. It can be done, though. I think, the more time that you're able to invest in the program, the more that you're able to build it into your regular curriculum, spend time on the activities that are inside the lessons. the happier I think you will be with the program and the more your students are going to get from it. And then also lastly, regardless of implementation method, students are going to complete a pre-test and a post-test with Turning Point, just to give us an idea of where we started and where we ended and give us some data that we can use. There are some base materials that you need for Love Notes. There's a teacher's manual. Right now we're providing, Arkansas Children's is providing a teacher's manual to our partner teachers. It's a $500 value. All the lessons are set up with this sort of lesson structure where you go through an overview. This gives you a little bit of background on the topic of the lesson and gives you what you need to know, maybe some data, why it's important. Then you're going to have goals. You'll have a lesson at a glance, which is really handy. It has the sections of the lesson broken down into like time frames. So if you look at your screen, you'll see this is lesson 3, a screenshot of lesson 3. So lesson 3 has 3 parts. 3.1 is titled What's Important, and it takes about 10 minutes to teach. 3.2, Power of Expectation, takes about 25 minutes. 3.3, Myself, My Future, takes about 10 minutes. It gives you an idea of what activity is tied to that part of the lesson. Those time frames are pretty accurate. It's a pretty good judge for how long a section will take you. But with that said, if you have some chatty students in your class that like to ask a lot of questions or like to bring up really interesting group discussions, obviously we know that could take a little longer. There's a trusted adult connection. We'll talk more about what that is here in a minute. And then you have a materials checklist. So that would tell you if there's anything additional that your students are going to need, and then a preparation checklist that would help you prepare to teach the lesson. At the back of each lesson, so the teacher's manual is a big 3-ring binder, divided up, with tabs into each lesson. At the back of each lesson, you have additional lesson resources. So if there are additional handouts that you need to make copies of and print, it's going to be there. If there's an activity that has cards that you need to cut out for the activity, they're going to be in the back part of that lesson. And I'd like to share a sample lesson with you guys. Probably should have mentioned this earlier. Love Notes was created by Marlene Pearson, and it is distributed or printed and sold through an organization called the Dibble Institute. They have a lot of relationship education curricula. They have some social and emotional learning curricula. Mind Matters is a really good one. Actually, I think they even have one that talks about like dealing with money there too. So if you are interested in any of those things, you can check out the Dibble Institute at dibbleinstitute.org. This is a sample lesson that they have posted on the website under Love Notes. So I thought it would be good to give you guys a little bit of an overview. This is the table of contents from the teacher's manual. We're going to just briefly scan through this lesson. Here's that overview. Again, the goals of lesson 6. Lesson 6 has, again, 3 parts. This first part is 35 minutes. This is a relationship sculpture. This is an awesome, awesome lesson. Does take a little bit longer. Then there's another, 5 to 10 minute activity, and then how to break up is a 22-minute activity. Here's that materials checklist. Because this one does have that sculpting activity, you need some arts and some crafts materials like some Play-Doh and pipe cleaners, and so it tells you all of that. And then here's that preparation checklist. The instructor's manual, once you're in here, it shows you the pictures of the slides that you would use on the PowerPoints to teach with. And then anything that they want you to say and that they want you, to kind of give you they wanted to give you a script. Anything that's sort of your script is in italics. And so it also gives you instructions for how to set up for the activities, how to lead the activities. It's a very easy curriculum to pick up and teach. And we'll talk a little bit more about the PowerPoints and how they help to make it easy. And then I'm going to fly through this real quick, and I'm going to get down here to the back of the lesson. And then here are those additional resources. So this is a handout that you would need to print for this lesson. This is a trusted adult activity. And we'll talk a little bit about what that is. And so here's, just some additional resources that you may print for your students. As far as base materials go, yes, you do need a teacher's manual, but obviously there are some student materials that go with it. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but there is a participant workbook. And this is a couple of pictures from inside the student workbook or the participant workbook that has to do with lesson 6. And so this is kind of what all the pages look like from that. Okay, so speaking of those student materials, students do get a workbook, and they also get a primary colors personality test. So that's personality test is there in the middle picture on the screen. The workbook cover is the picture that's on the right. If you're going to invest, 3 or 4 weeks of time into Love Notes, obviously you're going to want to give some grades on this. A really easy way to do that is to give completion grades on the student workbook. But if you do decide to do that, please let your students know that this workbook is private. It's theirs to keep. It's theirs to write in. We want them to use this like a journal and to really feel like they can fully express their thoughts and their opinions and, all of that inside the manual. So if you do decide to give a grade for that, just quickly do a thumb through, make sure they've done the page, but let's not read it for the right answer. The personality profile and the workbook together at this time are provided to our partner schools by Arkansas Children's, and combined the materials are approximately $15 a student. That's including shipping and all that good stuff, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of how much it costs on our side. Now let's look a little bit more in depth at this in-person implementation option. So in this scenario, Love Notes is going to be taught in class by the classroom teacher. Remember I said it could be you as a FACS teacher, could be a health teacher, what have you. It could even be a school counselor or a nurse if you wanted it to be. But whoever's teaching it is going to have the benefit of having hands-on activities and group discussions in class with the kids. I think this is how most people will probably choose to implement the program. Like I said, it's very easy to pick up and teach. There are PowerPoints that you would need to do implementation this way. You have access to all of the PowerPoints online via a Google Drive folder. And then the handy thing about the PowerPoint is that inside the notes section of the PowerPoint, there's a script, and you can just follow that and teach. It makes teaching it a breeze. The picture on the right-hand side of the screen here shows what a page would look like if you printed out the PowerPoint with that notes section. This is what I do when I teach. I'll just take that PowerPoint, print it out with the notes section. Sometimes they're a little wordy, so I might highlight as I'm preparing, like, oh, I want to be sure to talk about this, or I want to do that, or, I might write a little note for myself, don't forget this, from the teacher's manual. That makes it really, really easy to implement. And then also, like I said, there's a lot of hands-on activities, and some of those activities require a few additional supplies that are not provided by Arkansas Children's, like markers or crayons and Play-Doh, and you need some red and green beads for an activity in lesson 1, and some glitter in a water bottle for lesson 4, the Play-Doh and the craft sticks and the pipe cleaners, that goes with lesson 6. But if you just remember, as you're preparing to teach a lesson, that the beginning of the lesson is going to give you that materials checklist. It's really handy and easy to know what you need. Also, with the in-person option, I wanted to spend a little time talking about the variety of activities that you're going to see. So you are going to have workbook assignments. You're going to have worksheets that could be printed off. Those trusted adult connections are exactly what they sound like. A student would take a topic maybe, or something from one of the lessons, take it back to their trusted adult, who they pick this main trusted adult in lesson 1. And they're going to discuss that with that adult. Now, that trusted adult could be a parent, could be an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent. It could be a teacher that they really trust. a youth group leader, anyone that they trust. We don't allow them to use their friends. They will ask probably. And my answer is always no. They can't use their friends because this is a trusted adult connection. But that's really good because it helps them get a different adult, an adult that's close to them, their perspective on these different topics as you move through the lessons. Most lessons have 1 or 2 trusted adult connections. So you can pick one. There are also a lot of in-class activities. And then Love Notes is really good about using media opportunities for learning. So that might be a music video, might be just a regular video on YouTube. There's a movie opportunity there. Some of the activities are optional. The teacher's manual and the PowerPoint slides indicate which activities are optional. To get some of the lessons complete in a 45-minute or 50-minute class period, I do usually have to trim out a few of the activities. Sometimes I try to cut a music video or something like that to give me, to get me in that 45-minute time range. And I can always, if you do decide to do the in-person option and you're really wanting to get, this lesson done in 45 minutes, I can always help you decide what you might need to trim out if need be. So here's just some more examples of the in-class activities. This is some stuff that we do in lesson 1. The pictures on the right-hand side of the screen, or the right half of the screen, are pictures that students have drawn from that relationships today are like drawing prompt from lesson 1. So let's see if I can do a little annotation here. Draw for you. This relationships today are like money. This person said that relationships are like money. They pass quickly through your hands. There are too many idiots out there trying to fake it. Relationships are counterfeit. They're not valued. It's not worth as much as it used to be. This next one, is pretty self-explanatory. Relationships today are like, I get attached too quickly and then get hurt. The bottom one with the race car, a finely tuned race car. You need to work on it to keep it running, which is good. And then my personal favorite is this one down here in the bottom corner. They feel like relationships are like taking a big jump, a big leap. Choosing reds or greens. The picture with the red and green beads in the cup is where you really talk about how relationships in your life can either be good or bad, and you have students close their eyes. And if you're doing this in person, you would kind of pick a student and have them reach into this cup, eyes closed, and draw one of those beads out. If they drew a red bead, that means that that relationship is not right for them. It could mean that maybe it's an abusive relationship, it would be a dangerous relationship, or maybe they just wouldn't have anything in common with that person. It's not a right fit for them. And then you ask the class, well, how could I get a green bead? Because a green bead represents a good relationship, maybe not a perfect one because no one's perfect and all relationships take work, but what can I do to get a green bead? And so they'll say something like, open my eyes, or take some of the red ones out so I increase my chances of getting a green. And both of those things are right. And you do those things by gaining knowledge. And so that's what Love Notes does. It helps them gain knowledge so they can open their eyes, get rid of some of those red beads, and be able to pick a green bead, a green relationship, a good relationship for their future. Then there's also a movie opportunity here in lesson 1. Antoine Fisher. It's a long video. If you have time to watch the whole thing, it is a great video. If you don't, I typically will play, just a little segment, maybe the first, 10 or 15 minutes maybe of the movie, or you can even play the trailer just to kind of give them an idea of the movie, because this movie is referenced throughout the curriculum. So if you have time to spend some time with that movie, it is beneficial. There's also a trusted adult connection for lesson 1, where students select their go-to person who they're going to use as their trusted adult for all the trusted adult connections as they go through the program. also wanted to show you a little bit from lesson 4. Lesson 4 has some of the biggest activities in the curriculum. So lesson 4 starts with a brainstorm of ingredients of that ideal relationship. So I mentioned this when we were in our lesson outline slides. And then we use that to build a relationship pyramid. So let's take a little bit of a look at this. On the left-hand side of your screen, you see the 15 probably most common things that I see mentioned when we do this activity in class with a student. So really relationship ingredients that students usually say are things like, I want to have fun, or I want to be attracted. I want there to be chemistry. They're supportive. They have good communication. They're funny. We have common interests and values. I want this person to feel like a friend. There needs to be trust, honesty, respect, loyalty, commitment. They need to be responsible or dependable. I want them to be affectionate. I want there to be love. And sometimes you will get a student to say sex. Rarely do you. Sometimes I'll have to prompt them to say that, because the idea is that you're going to take these ingredients, 15 to 20 ingredients, and build a good, strong relationship. And so you can see the pyramid here on the screen. The bottom section of the pyramid is the positive starters, the foundation. So these are things that are important to us as we're establishing a relationship. So we want to know that they're funny and that we have common interests with them. These are things we're going to find out pretty quickly about a person. The deepening and developing portion, the middle section of the pyramid, are things that take a little bit longer for us to discover about a person. And then in mature love, we should have love and sex. So the idea is to build this pyramid, this ideal relationship that could last a lifetime. What are we looking for in a long-lasting, mature, end-all be-all relationship? And so these are the things that we're looking for. You can do the brainstorm together as a class and then divide the class up into groups and have them build their foundation, their pyramid. You can do the pyramid part together as a class and kind of coach them through where you would, see different things. If you do it where you divide them out into groups, everyone uses the same ingredients, but each group is going to build their own pyramid. And then it's important to debrief at that point and kind of, maybe they put trust in the bottom, in the foundation, or maybe they put sex in the foundation. You would talk them through why do we not want to put sex in our foundation? Why is it going to take a little bit longer to know if this person is trustworthy? And then you're not going to know that right off the bat. So you'll walk them through those types of things. The teacher's manual does a really good job of helping you understand how to debrief on these activities. And the point of the debrief really is to see if they do put something in the foundation in that bottom, why it shouldn't be there. Then once you build your solid foundation, your relationship pyramid, you do a little look at an inverted pyramid and why starting a relationship with sex sets you up to have a shaky foundation. There's also a glitter bottle demonstration that helps students visualize how the chemistry of the brain changes during attraction and how that leads to clouded judgment. There's a science of love video that reinforces that cloudy judgment. There's a love versus infatuation matching activity that helps students understand the difference between love and infatuation. And then there's an optional homework assignment for a love note or a love songs activity where you would ask students to identify a song that, in their opinion, expresses real love. And they'll bring those back to you. And if you wanted to, you could take those songs and make a playlist with them and then play them if appropriate during your class activities or while students are coming and going into class. We try to do that when we teach it, Charles and I, because it gives we're coming for a solid, 3 to 4 weeks. And so it gives us a little something to feel like we're being cool and fun in the classroom. But if you wanted to do that, you could do that as well. Lesson 6 also has some really great hands-on in-class activities. The relationship sculptures is one of those. So you divide the class into 6 groups, and they are going to be given a card that describes one of 6 types of relationships. So conditional, unconditional, controlling and disrespectful, or equal, respectful and supportive, mostly sexual or material, and attraction on many levels. So if we get one of those 6 types of relationships, the card's going to describe that relationship a little bit, and you're going to ask them to sculpt that relationship. And so if you look on the right side of the screen, you see a picture here. This is a sculpture that we got from a student in BB. They've been a partner with us for a couple of years, and this is in their health class. So this student, or this group of students, had unconditional relationship. So the card says, you're comfortable being the real you. There's no pretending. There are no games going on. You don't have to be perfect. You can be who you really are and be appreciated. You support each other's interest and personal growth. In small and large ways, you show that you care about each other. There are no worries about being dumped. If they do something the other person doesn't like, you can tell each other about behaviors you don't like. And so they made the sculpture, and they said that the long green line there meant that it was long lasting. The circle in the middle was a ring of trust. The yellow mask underneath the ring and the green line means that their masks were taking off once they knew that they were truly trustworthy. So that's a really good one. I've got a couple more examples for you here. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have a conditional relationship. So in this relationship, you feel you have to have money or be or act or talk or look a certain way in order to earn or keep your partner's attention. You feel like you have to do certain things or you'll be dumped. You worry a lot about not being good enough. Your partner often makes you feel little. You're not free to be the real you. You wear a mask. There's not much trust. You suspect that your partner may cheat on you. So they made some stick people out of pipe cleaners and had the money there. I've also seen students sculpt little people and put masks on their faces, or like have a leash around. One person has a leash around the other one to represent the controlling, factor there. And then on the right, we have a controlling, disrespectful relationship. So again, we do see in this picture a leash around one person, and even looks like maybe handcuffs on the clothespin arms there. But the partner shows little to no interest in your feelings or what you have to say. The partner needs to appear to be the boss, especially in front of others. You avoid saying or doing things that are important to you. You worry about upsetting that person. Your partner seems overly jealous, keeps tabs on you 24/7. Your partner expresses frustration or anger in negative ways towards you. So this is just a few examples of things that we've seen. These are all actually from students in BB High School. So these are some real life examples. Then after that relationship sculptures activity, there's a words that tell transition activity where you just simply call out words and students call back whether they think that word is healthy or unhealthy in a relationship. Then they do a workbook activity in lesson 6 where they assess relationships, and they can do that on a current relationship or a past relationship, or if maybe they've never had a partner, they could do it on a relationship of someone they know well. We talk about how having fun in relationships is important, and we brainstorm some ways to have fun on a variety of time and budget allowances. And then we also talk about breaking up. So how do we know when to stay together versus when we should break up? Or how do we break up? Maybe we don't do that over a text message, and how to move on after a breakup, etc. Now, with the virtual option, Love Notes is taught utilizing online lessons created in Turning Point. I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. Created in Turning Point by Arkansas Children. So I created these lessons last year so that we could still do Love Notes in the COVID world. obviously. But the benefit of this is that, the lessons are self-paced, they're very user-friendly. They do still have a variety of activities, but now, they are going to be tweaked to be, a virtual option, obviously. You do need some additional materials. You have to have some way to get these links assigned to your students. So I would send you an agenda and an instruction sheet that has a link. That's what's pictured here on the right, with a link to each lesson. So you can take this piece of paper and give it to your students, or you can pull each of those links out and assign them in your learning management system. Then the student would click the link and it would take them to the lesson. The student, to do the lesson, is going to need internet access, and they're going to need an up-to-date internet browser. Typically, Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge are recommended. Luckily, most, I'm not going to say all of us, because we do have very rural parts of Arkansas, most of us do have access to those things. Inside these lessons, there are going to be links to lots of videos, and we may have to, work with your IT department to make sure that your firewalls inside the schools aren't going to block access to these lesson contents. We are talking about sex and sexting and porn addiction. So sometimes we've seen firewalls block some of our videos. So that's something that we might have to work on. But like I said, the lessons are going to include the same types, or the same topics, at least, of activities that we've talked about with the in-person option, but they're going to be tweaked so that they can be in a virtual format. This virtual option is going to rely much more heavily on videos. All the video, I won't say all, most of the videos are 10 minutes or less in length to keep them a little bit more manageable. And then I usually always put one, sometimes two open-ended questions after the videos to kind of help make sure that the students really did watch it and that they were being engaged. You'll see multiple question formats through the courses. There are open-ended ones, some short answer questions. There are multiple choices. They do have workbook assignments, the same workbook assignments that they would do in person, they would do on the virtual option. There's still trusted adult connections here, but it's harder to really check for those things. And I wanted to go ahead and pull up one of the turning point lessons so that you could get an idea of what it looks like. So if you clicked one of the links on that agenda and instruction sheet, it would bring you or pop up a internet tab for you. It looks something like this. Typically, the first time you enter a session, you'll have to enter your first and your last name, usually over here on the right. It did not do that to me because I'm already logged in, but just be aware you would probably have to enter your first and your last name. So this is lesson 13. This is the, it's called lesson 13 because remember I said I usually do the technology and social media lesson before I do the actual lesson 13 through the eyes of a child. So I've titled this one lesson 13, but it's actually the supplemental appendix lesson. So this is the technology and social media lesson. They start this with an open-ended question. So it says, many people spend a lot of time and effort managing their online image or presence. Some even make a career out of it, like social media influencers. They post updates, text comments, likes, mini blogs, pictures, videos, and they have a constant message stream with others on their social media sites. In your opinion, how real are people in the way they represent themselves online? Do people shape their image to exaggerate or play up their life? And so they're able to answer this question just, as an open-ended question. Then once they've typed in their answer, I'm just going to do this, they will send it to me. And it tells them your response has been submitted. Then they'll click next and they can move on. This is another question. So why? Why do we, typically students will say, yes, they play up their lives. A lot of that's fake. It's not real. So then I ask them why? Why do we do that? So we move through these lessons like this. Here's an example of a multiple choice question. So this one is, how much time do you use spending a digital device? So they can click an answer and it's going to automatically save it. And then they can click next. This question list button up at the top allows a student to look through all of the slides of a lesson. Lessons that have a circle, or slides that have a circle on the right hand side have a question attached to them. If it's filled in blue, solid, they've answered it, they're good to go. If it's empty, they still need an answer for that. And so this gives you just a little bit of an idea. Some of the slides have videos embedded right here. If they're from YouTube, I was able to just put them and embed them right into the slide. If it's a video that I had to record of myself teaching, I should have looked here to see if I could find this before. Sorry about this. Actually, I'm not sure I have a slide of me teaching anything in this lesson. Here's another video from YouTube. But if it is a lesson or a video that I had to record of myself teaching, they would not have it embedded right in the lesson. They would actually have to click a link, and it's going to open a new tab for them in their browser, and they would watch it and then come back to Turning Point to continue on with the lesson. And I tried to be really good about telling them, what to do next. Like, if you've had to come to this tab to watch this video, please return back to Turning Point and continue on. Once they get all the way down to the end of the lessons, this next button will finally turn into a submit. And if they had unanswered questions on the lesson, it will give them this prompt. You have unanswered questions. Would you like to review the question list or submit anyway? So if they click question list, they can tab down through and see which of those circles is left unfilled and answer that question before they submit. And then when they click submit, it sends me their responses. And each week, or however often we decide, I'm able to go in and look at those responses, run reports, send you reports on what your students have said, so that you can give, again, completion grades. And so we could do that, once a week on Mondays or Fridays, or, whatever works best for your grading schedule. Now, the hybrid option is Love Notes, just, taught using both in-person and virtual methods. So this gives you, the option to assign a virtual lesson to a student, maybe who missed the lesson in class, or you need to switch to virtual because we're having another wave of COVID, or just because you're going to be out and you need an assignment for a substitute to teach. You could assign the Love Notes lesson that you're on in this Turning Point format. Or maybe you just want to switch it up and let your students have something different. Whatever the reason, this hybrid option is really designed to give you flexibility. Now, I'm sure that some of you watching this are already Love Notes partners, and if that is you, I am so excited to have you join us this year. I hope that this has given you a little better idea of how you would like to implement the program. As we've all talked, I mentioned that I was going to order your teacher manuals and your student materials. So I have done that. Those materials are in, and I'll be in touch this summer so that we can work on schedule a time for me to deliver those to you, and for us to do some more one-on-one training to help you, get fully ready for implementation. If you're not already a Love Notes partner, and this sounds like something you're interested in, you can contact me at the email or the phone number listed on the screen. We do require that our partners sign a partnership agreement. Sometimes, you might have heard that maybe as a MOU, a memorandum of understanding. Basically, that partnership agreement just outlines what my responsibilities are as a partner, what your responsibilities are as a partner, and gives me something that I can show, that says I have this many schools who are participating with me. So that is something that we do require. We also are limited due to our budget, as most people are. Don't let that deter you from reaching out if you're interested. Even if we've met our limit. We're fully at capacity due to our budget. Where there's a will, there's a way. And if you're interested in, becoming a partner, please reach out and maybe we can find, even if that budget's met, maybe we can find an additional way to get you in the program and get you involved. Then I mentioned my coworker Charles just a little bit in this presentation, but he helps me teach Love Notes, but he also has a separate program called Cooking Matters that he coordinates. So like I said, some of you may already know him, but if you're interested in that, Cooking Matters is a one-time presentation that teaches students how to shop healthy on a budget. You can contact him at the email or the phone number listed there. He works again a lot with FACS teachers and also sometimes with health classes. So if you feel like your health teacher might be interested, you can pass along his contact information. And then if you have any questions for me, if you're interested in the Love Notes program, I would love to chat with you. So please give me a call or shoot me an email. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I hope that it answered some of your questions or maybe created a few new ones that you might have to ask me about. But either way, I'm so thankful for your time and for you taking the time to watch this, and hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks so much.